Hey everyone, welcome to Code Now IO course. My name is Judson Terrell, and this is our course in HTML. So we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So hopefully you watched my intro video, which gave you some insight to some of the tools we're going to be using for this. But for now, what you're going to need to do, we're going to use a tool called StackBlitz. That's a website. So you're going to go over to stackblitz.com. That's with a Z, if you can see here. And when you get to their homepage, you're going to be able to go down and select a certain framework. Your homepage might be a little different than mine because I'm linked to my GitHub account. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into front end, and we're eventually going to be working in Angular. That's my framework of choice, but we got to get started somewhere. So we're going to start teaching HTML here. So we're going to select the static HTML, JS, and CSS. Once we select that, it brings us over to this little template, and the web page that it generates is actually here on the right side, which is really cool because you can code and then see what's happening as you code. So we're on the home page, and then we go to the other page, which is page 2. But in order to keep things simple, again, this is really to teach about HTML and the purpose of it and why it's essential and how it works. So if I go over to a website, for example, like Google News, when you look at this website, basically every element you see here, like this box, this big gray box, the background element, the little logo, all that stuff is wrapped in some sort of HTML tag. So if I go here into DevTools, I'm going to blow this up a little bit. You can see that we've got our doc type. So an HTML page is actually a document, and the type is HTML. We've got our HTML tag, which represents enclosing the HTML document. We've got head information here, which is not visible. We'll talk about that at some point. And we've got the body, where everything actually renders within the document. So whenever you hear me throw out terms like the DOM, I'm referencing to the document, or excuse me, I'm referring to the document object model, which is basically the entire contents of a web page and everything within it. So I wanted to show you this because you're going to be using this DevTools thing quite heavily in some of the other tutorials. But let's dive into HTML now. So again, if you look over here, the similarity is that you have your doc type declaration. That just simply says, hey, I'm using an HTML document. So that goes at the very top of every HTML page. Next, you're going to see that we have the HTML tag. So whenever you see anything like this, that is a tag. That's what we refer to as a tag. One thing that you'll notice is some tags close themselves, but some tags actually have an end tag. So you have a start tag, you have attributes. These are type is an attribute that has a value, source is an attribute that has a value, and then you have a closing tag, which is very important for certain types of tags, especially when you get into the body here. Some of the few tags that do not have closing tags are like image tag, and there's a few other out there, but we'll get into all that stuff later. Right now we're going to talk about how HTML works and what it does. So for now, what I want you to do is I basically want you to ignore this section, and we're going to focus on the body of this document right now. So I'm going to do something that is very typical in coding, is to where we will actually comment out code. And I did that by hitting command and then / Now you see that code disappeared. We do that a lot in programming because we say, hey, I might not want to use that code right now, but I might want to come back to it later. So I simply highlight all of the code and hit that again, command / and it comes right back. But for the purpose of going through certain elements and talking about that, we're going to comment it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about the box model in HTML. So again, all this stuff that you see here is necessary at a minimum to build a web page. The most generic tag that you can possibly use in an HTML document is what we call a div tag. Tags typically are semantic. So nav represents that we have a navigation area. The A tag is an anchor tag that represents we're linking to something. H1 is a heading tag. And if you want to learn about HTML semantics, you can head over to a website called w3schools.com, which is right here. And you go into their HTML course, and they have a really they go over everything. For me, what I'm trying to do here is simplify the process for you so you can start building stuff right away. But what I would expect is that you would go out to w3schools.com and really go through all their detailed stuff and really learn about it in as much detail as possible, because they have really great courses on here. So basically, we have created a div tag, and a div tag by default, I'm going to put some text inside of that tag. So test. And there you go. I just put something on a web page. It was that simple. Now, granted, you could just go in here and put test in the body, and it looks no different. But part of it is because we're not styling it. We're not putting anything else around it, anything like that. So let's put that div tag back, and I'm going to do test. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put another one below it and do test 2. So by default, a div tag actually expands across the entire page. So if I were to inspect it like we did over on the other website in the dev console, you would see that. But what I'm going to do to make that simple is I'm going to add a little bit of styling to this tag right now. So I'm going to add an attribute, which we talked about earlier, called style equals. And I'm going to add that to each one of these tags. And we're actually applying an inline style is what this is called. And you can go look at the documentation on CSS, and it'll give you a lot of different properties you can use, like background color, background image, color, height, width, all that kind of stuff. But for the sake of this, I'm just going to simply do background is red. So please note the syntax for this, and I'm going to blow my screen up a little bit so it's easier to see. Background colon, this is a property, and then this is a value, and then you want to put a semicolon when you're done because you could potentially put other things here, but we're just doing this for now. Actually, I take that back. Let's go ahead and make the text white. So for the background color, use background or background color. Either one will work. For color, we're going to make the text white. So you see how easily that changed. Down here, we're going to do background, green, color, white. And again, you want to make sure you escape those with semicolons. So there you go. You can see that that div takes up the entire width of the page by default. There are certain cases where you might not want to do that. You might want to not take up the entire width. These are what we refer to as inline elements. Again, this is a block element. Block means taking up the width of its space. And then an inline element, a tag that we can use to do that out of the box, is called a span tag. Span tag basically says I only want to span the width of whatever is inside of it. So I'm inside here. Okay, and obviously it's not obvious to you that it's doing anything different. So what do? We go up here and we pick another color, copy and paste that style over, and we're going to make this blue, and there you go. So what you've learned about today is that we've got the structure of an HTML document, very simple. You've got the body, which represents all the content that we're going to see in the page. We've got a div tag that we can put inline styles on. Another div tag which we put inline styles on to represent how they stack on top of each other. And then we've got a span tag which uses inline block, which basically means it only is as wide as the containing stuff inside of it. Now, in order to really represent that, we're going to copy one more over, and you see how they just sort of go left to right. With inline block elements, that's how they work. They basically just stack onto the page left to right. We're going to make that background yellow, color red, and there you go. The other thing we're going to do real quick, and this is a common practice, we're going to go up here and we're going to put a style tag. So the way that we, as you can see, we put these styles on, we call them inline styles because we're applying the style directly in this manner. But eventually we're going to cover how you create what's called CSS, and you put those styles up here. So we're going to do a quick little CSS reset. We're going to do HTML body star padding 0, margin 0. Oh, having trouble typing today. And basically what we're saying is we want to remove padding and margin from around and inside certain elements that we've created here in order to make everything stack together. And there's a reason why we do this. In general, it's because a lot of browsers back in the day, they would render different elements. That has gotten better over the years, and once we get into more advanced topics, I'll explain all of that. But for now, I just want you to focus on writing some HTML, like going over to stackblitz.com, picking the static or HTML, CSS, JS project, go in and create some HTML, create some inline styles with these div tags, play around with some of these span tags, and just stack a bunch of these on top of each other, and just do some cool things with them, like Alice Blue, I think, is a color. You can barely see that color, but we're gonna go color gray, and there we go. So this is the first course, and this is what I would like for you to work on, and I look forward to seeing you with the next course. Thank you.